What's up, guys? Welcome to another Beyond All Reason in-depth analysis. I'm your host, Zateo, and today we're going to be doing a review for Blights as they play an 8v8 on All That Glitters. In this replay, we're going to go in depth on some of the early game details with economy, base management, and unit control and things like that. I just want to point a lot of this stuff out for anyone that might stumble across this video. I think this is a really good video to showcase like some of the good stuff, some of the bad stuff, and help people grow as a player. Anyways, let's get into it. So this is a frontal position on All That Glitters next to the mountain. It's a fairly important spot. Because in a way this spot needs to be ready to help out with mountainside, needs to be able to help out with the other side over here, and then you have your own stuff to deal with, so it can be kind of chaotic when it comes to the unit control. Early on here, I will point out really quickly that you want to try to grab all three mexes as soon as possible. When you're going solar does not cost energy, so you can actually just get all three mexes and then the solar. You will stall very slightly on the third mex if you do that, simply because you won't quite have enough energy for all three when they're clustered so close together, but it is very slight, and I think it's worth it. If you don't want to have that, like, 1 to 2 second stall, you could put down one solar after your first two mexes, and then grab your third mex and then second solar, and that'll just net you slightly more metal to be able to use for your vehicles and stuff, because vehicles are pretty expensive on metal. So little things like that can help you out quite a bit. I see you have a nice queue going on. I'm glad to see it. That's something that I see a lot of people struggle with early on when they, first start playing bar. Is they underestimate how long their queue should be. So I'm glad to see that you have a long queue here. Let's see. Oh wow, you got all the stuff queued up at your factory as well. Alright, so now you're adding on some winds. Your placements of the winds, I think, I'm gonna actually just pause here real quick. So when you place your winds vertically like this, and your commander is generally on this side of things because he's assisting the lab and building stuff out here, anything behind these winds will not, the commander cannot shoot through the wind. Same with an LLT, because wind turbines are quite tall, and so anything that gets back here will actually still be able to just destroy a bunch of stuff. Same with your LLT placement here. It just will get blocked by the wind turbines you have. So I would recommend maybe rearranging it so that it's maybe a little more vertical, or you could do like spaced out a little bit so that there's like a window for the commander or tower to shoot through. So you could do things like place some of those winds a little bit further out here, or like if you did it vertically like this and put your tower like around here, then your tower can basically shoot a lot of different angles here. So that might be a little rearrangement you might want to do. The other thing is I see you have queued up an anti-air tower and a light laser tower. You definitely don't need this anti-air this early. Like, there's no chance that the air player will get a bomber out this early. And I mean, it's, I guess, possible for them to get out a super fast bomber, but like one nettle is not really gonna save your base from one bomber anyways, so like it doesn't really matter that much to do that, so you're just kind of delaying yourself a bit. Light laser tower, you don't quite need this early. I like to recommend getting one maybe when your commander moves out of the base, but as it is, your commander can actually take out all the scouts and ticks this early on. And then for like if there's a bunch that show up, try to use your scouts to help with that, or you can like just quickly build a couple more and boost them out with your commander and stuff like that. That way, you're spending less time getting some of these buildings or these structures that you don't quite need this early, and then you can focus a little bit more on eco. Because right now your energy is very low. Now, notes wind is, it's not at the best right now. It's only at 7.4. and then you're also boosting the lab when your energy is low. So this definitely you could be building some more wins, or if you didn't build these towers at this time, you could put down some more, or these could be essentially wind turbines instead, and you'd be in a bit of a better position to crank some of these units out. So let's see, this guy's assisting. Okay. I would also recommend that as you start moving out, put down a radar, either like in the fronts, or if you're really worried about scouts, like put one in your base, earlier on, because that radar basically, like if you basically replace this light laser tower with a radar, you should be able to see any scouts coming into your base from a lot of different angles. Now, obviously, if they somehow zigzag around through here, it's going to be a little bit harder to see them like in this particular area because of the mountains. But your ally here should be able to either kill them off, or they have vision over there. So I mean, you can see them coming, hopefully, if you're paying attention. But yeah, little things like removing some of this stuff to get more eco and getting a radar. The radar itself basically should help you have the awareness to defend your base, essentially. But yeah, your E is a bit low here. I'm glad that your commander's moving out. It's a good time to move out. It looks like you're queuing up some mexes with this constructor, which is great. You got a nice long queue here. Commander skipping some mexes. Let's see, you're getting another constructor. Okay, good. These are bits early. You don't have the energy to utilize them whatsoever. Each of these is 200 build power, and it's just kind of a lot when you don't have the energy for it. So I would recommend getting more energy first and then getting those. Yeah, so just like getting more energy, getting like, it's good that you're assisting the lab and grabbing mexes and adding on energy and all that. I feel like your commander could put down a couple of these mexes as they walk by. Like I wouldn't go out of my way to grab like these ones on the side. Your constructor here can grab it, but just grabbing one or two of these mexes on the way will help boost your metal to have more units in the long term. Note, of course, that comes at a price of your commander gets there a little bit late, or a little bit later, I should say. But that basically is going to allow you to field a lot more units. And if anybody has any questions on anything, of course, please leave a comment. Highly recommend. I do check them. Very importantly, this 3.2 should be taken as you get up here. Also, very importantly, radar. This is actually a huge thing. Radar is literally the best unit in the game. Because in order to make correct decisions, in order to defend something that's coming to your base or to your allies' base, having radar is essential, because otherwise you just don't know. So as you move out, I would recommend, placing a radar. Say like your first radar is like at your base, that basically covers to like out here. As you move out, I'd even build like a second radar like over here, just to see even further. And then with that one, you can see like all the way to like out here. And then if you're able to control this area here, putting down another radar over here, also great. Just to like extend that vision so you can see what's coming. That should help you. With that, you should be able to tell how far you can move your commander out, and what like needs to happen for that particular scenario. So you guys are seeing that there are some blue units out here. A lot of scouts, a couple of blitzes. Yeah, so this is a reasonable place to kind of set up here. This is a nice forward position. In fact, this light laser tower is in a great spot because it's well away from your mechs here, your 3.2. So if you set up your line here, the enemy has to move past these towers first to even be able to attack the extractor. You know, whereas sometimes I see people put towers like around the extractor, either in front of it or maybe even sometimes behind it, and it's like, well, you know, it's gonna protect the mechs a little bit, but the mechs die pretty quickly, and you know, things like artillery can just shell them from a distance. So I'm really glad to see these in a more forward position. If your allies were also up here, you know, in these positions, you could potentially grab this one as well, this 3.2, and have double the income. But since you're in the middle position, it's kind of hard to do that without your allies being kind of, you know, next to you, because otherwise you get flanked from all these different directions. You know, so it's kind of rough pushing too far. But I like your position here. You know, you're just kind of setting up with your light laser towers, and you have your 3.2. Your tower's in a position to deny the enemy 3.2, so that's all really good here. Back at base, yeah, so having a second constructed turret, definitely too much. Absolutely too much. Um, Building all these converters, you don't really even have the energy to, like, normally, so these converters are just taking up more energy because they don't really have a metal cost. They have, you know, the energy cost of 1,250. So you're basically just draining your energy at this point building these. Um, you want to instead build more wind turbines. Also, it's not really great to do this in general. Some maps where the wind gets pretty high, it's okay to do it, but it's not great because every time that um, you know, build energy to convert, it takes a while to pay off. And I want to make special notes of you know, things like solar collectors or advanced solar collectors. They take a long time to pay off, a very long time. I'm talking 10 minutes. You know, to even see a return from converting from solar is 10 minutes. Advanced solar, I forget the exact number, but you know, it's a little bit more efficient than basic, but you only really want to do like conversions when it's wind on a good day or on a good map, I should say. Um, which it's not awful on this map, but generally it's hard to get enough winds to support everything that you need to do. So you know, converters are generally not the thing here on this map. I do want to point out really quickly, going back to the whole radar thing. So the commander has a radar, right? You have this like green circle around the commander. Sorry, I'm a poor drawer. That's a very shitty looking circle. Um, but essentially, there's a lot of ways that your opponents can sneak into your base potentially. Like they could send units this way, they could send units this way. You know, and you wouldn't even know about it other than the fact that you have some units and your ally has a unit there. You know, so it is covered right now. Don't get me wrong. But if you move this unit, your ally moves that unit, all of a sudden there's a lot of different ways into your base that you won't even know about because you don't have the radar essentially. So very easy to raid when you don't have that radar. And he's eating up some metal. Good stuff. But yeah, your energy needs are pretty dire at this point. Yeah, wind's near max now, so it's okay at this point. Actually, it's only okay at this point because your allies are all overflowing. So you're getting a lot of extra energy from your allies. Right, so here comes. So if you had a radar up here, you'd be able to see this coming a lot sooner. You know, again, just to show the coverage. I mean, obviously there's this, you know, rock here that blocks view a bit, but you know, putting one on this side, maybe one over here, will help with that. But yeah, just being able to see those dots approaching can help you and your allies deal with this a lot better, and you know, just respond. There's a bomber somewhere. Oh. Yeah, so this is around the earliest time they're gonna see a bomber. Actually, it's probably more like 4 minutes, maybe even 3.5 minutes. So that's when you want to think about that anti-air that I was talking about instead of getting it so early. But also notes when they put out an early bomber like that, it comes at a cost. You know, like, I mean, and basically, like, the air player back here should have a couple fighters out to deal with that anyways. Um, but yeah, when they get an early bomber out like that, it comes at the cost of quite a few fighters. And, you know, if they also have some fighters, then they're really behind on economy, or, you know, it's like that. So, like, you know, if there's an early bombing, it's kind of okay if it gets some damage, as long as it's not a ton. Um, and yeah, um, on a map like this where there is some dedicated air players, you know, generally that shouldn't happen either. So yeah, fortunately that guy is just gonna get out. Keep going apparently. Let's see. Okay, so now that you have more wins and you know, now you can actually use these construction turrets. That's good. All right, let's see. So yeah, so far you're just setting up a nice light laser tower line. You could have grabbed this mech, by the way. Just like any mechs that you can grab early is pretty good. Actually, why don't we look at Blue's view? Because, yeah. So Blue, even though Blue got to the front late, they grabbed all these mexes. And you still have all these mexes to take. You know, so, and that just has to do with, like, you know, you had your constructor grab mexes, which is great. But if your commander also grabbed a few on the way, then you'd have more metal to work with, which means you could potentially field more units. And now that you have all this build power and energy done, you're probably going to be able to spend your metal, which means it's going to be very low. So having those earlier would mean that your metal bar would be either a little bit higher, or if you, you know, had a bit more of an efficient opener, then you just have more units. Basically. So at this point, yeah, Blue's already in a great spot compared to where you're at because of the setup, which is very, very important. The setup is extremely important. And then also because you're in this frontal position, you know, you're kind of sticking out a little bit, whereas your allies are back a bit. You know, it means that this player back here can now target you a little bit. You know, and it's great to have that frontal position. Don't get me wrong, you're getting some value off of it just from having this 3.2 earlier. Let's see, so you get medium tanks, pounder, artillery. Let's see, do you have any lashers? No. Okay, so you're not getting lashers. So that's the thing too, is you know, it's kind of like to deal with Blue's composition. You want something with range, and you know, medium tanks, pounders, like they don't really have the range to deal with Janus very well. Lashers are great there. Artillery can be useful as well, and so that's what I would basically recommend that against Janus. But it's good that, you know, you have a reasonable composition at this point. Careful, don't get oh no. But yeah, very good use of Commander from Cheetah there. There's your radar. But yeah, your metal's quite low now, which is, you know, that's pretty normal. But I would say grabbing these mexes would have helped you out a bit here. In fact, Blue got here so late, you could have had the 3.2 for a little bit. It does not take long for a mex to pay itself off. You know, it's only 50 metal, so divide that by, you know, the 3.2, and you got how long it takes to pay off. Yeah, so okay, so this is a pretty classic composition. You just got the Janus and the Whistlers back here. It's a very good composition to have. This will defeat a lot of people. You know, it's not the easiest thing to deal with. But the thing is, this entire composition is very slow. And on other maps, you can do things like run around it. You know, abuse the fact that they're slow and just move faster units in other directions around, you know, these units and around any pork you see. Now in All That Glitters, you know, a map like this where it's like a thin map, you don't really have a ton of space to cover. Like this is basically your area. This is basically Blue's area, right? So like, you know, there isn't really a lot of potential for that. I mean, potentially you could send a raiding party down here, but you know, Green probably has a tower here, and there's probably some other stuff there, and then you got to like run through Green's area as well. So it gets a little dicey, you know, on this kind of map where it is kind of thin like that. So your only real thing is to fight it, or try not to die to it. Um, you know, which is going to be hard. And it's sort of like you can't really get towers either because, you know, Blue can very easily just switch to artillery and take the towers out. You know, so there isn't really a lot of options here in terms of like just porking up and making it hard for them. Um, Careful. So the way you want to deal with this, it's kind of technical. It's kind of difficult, and so it's a hard composition to beat. But basically, you don't want to fight it until you have a sizable army. You know, you want to stay out of the Whistler range, essentially. You know, and it's okay to back up. It's okay to lose ground. You know, as long as you don't lose your units, you don't want to take extra damage. And any damage that you do take, try to repair that damage because, you know, a few Whistler shots here and there isn't, you know, a ton of damage. Like, you know, these units are still at reasonable health, except for that one, obviously. But if it's not repaired, then that little bit is kind of like sustained damage that's, you know, it's just going to be there for the next time the Whistlers attack. So Blue's fielding a sizable army here. And so this, like, moving in like this, a mistake. Because, you know, Janisses are just taking their shots. Sheeta's doing a nice job retreating with his army. And the Janisses just take some nice shots anytime you get that close. You know, so ideally back up, get some artillery. You know, getting a few lashers is not bad either. Lashers are quite good here. They're, you know, they're the counterparts of the Whistler. They're pretty similar. Good that you're reclaiming. Your energy's quite low again. And that's really the tricky thing on this map when the wind is where it is. Wind can get very low on this map. And so after a while, after you have some energy built up like this, I would recommend building advanced, not like a, well, I mean, you can build quite a few advanced solars, but just for starters, you know, I'd recommend building 1 or 2 advanced solars when the wind is high. You don't want to do it right now because your energy is low. Advanced solars cost a ton of energy, 4,000 energy. You know, so don't do it right now because the wind's low, but, you know, when you can, maybe put down a couple. And even before that, you could put down energy storage. Now, if you come from an RTS background or you know, some other games, you know, you might have the notion of, well, it's bad to have a lot of resources, you should be spending it. So storage is bad, right? Because that means you're just not spending your resources. So just macro better, right? In bar, you know, you have a fairly limited energy bar. Like it, you know, 1,374 storage is really not that much. And when it comes to something like winds, because it's so dynamic, you know, having more built up is kind of okay. So having a storage here would actually help a lot for the moments when the wind dips down so far. I would highly recommend doing that. Doing that instead of converting the excess. Because converting the excess will put you in this bind where you just don't have enough right now. So now your metal's going up because that wind was so low. And the storage would have helped that in that moment since it only stayed low for just a moment. Okay, he's gonna D-gun. Yeah. Okay. Oh, he loses commander. That's nice. Uh, okay. You got this jammer, so that's good too. Whistlers have great line of sight, so they're still gonna be able to attack you a bit. It's a bit unfortunate. It's quite a few whistlers too. Yeah, your artillery are doing some nice work, and of course you want some, some units to absorb some damage for your artillery, so they can't just be, ran up on. So it's good to have medium tanks, but you don't actually want to engage with the medium tanks too much. Same thing with the pounders. It's great to have, but ideally you don't want them to fight too often against things like whistlers, because they'll just be able to do damage from a distance. Especially since blue's army is so much bigger at this point. So just be careful. Artillery are great here because even though there's that high arc shot that can miss very easily, these are slower units, so it's easier to hit with artillery than most cases. Back at base. Yeah, too many converters. Too many converters. Like, these aren't even being used right now. Like the ones that are lit up are the ones being used. So you have two that are being used, and now they're off. And also note that this is when wind is basically maxed. So you already have like way too much here. Let's see, you got a T2 con. It looks like you didn't have to pay for it, so red just doing you a solid and giving it to you. So, okay, so this is really good that you're doing this and upgrading your mexes. It's a dicey situation, right? Because, so in a lot of cases, what you actually want to do when you get your T2 mech starting to work on these mexes, you want to put as many resources as you can into it as quickly as possible, because upgrading these mexes gives you 4 times the metal, so that becomes a huge deal. Metal is a very big deal. So trying to put all your build power into that, reclaiming the lab if your metal's as low as it is, to get these mexes sooner, and then rebuilding the lab as they get done, or rebuilding a T2 lab depending on the situation, or depending on if you have energy, you might need a fusion or something like that to stay afloat with T2 economy. But that all depends on how well you're doing up front, how well this is going. And with Pink's aid, this is not bad actually. Pink's doing you a solid by sending some extra units out here for you. So very, very good on Eradicator. It's a very solid job of just helping your ally. This is a back player who's playing support more or less. They have their mexes upgraded already, and so they're just adding on a few artillery to help out here. I would recommend, if you are a Eradicator in this situation, so instead of controlling these artillery, if you trust your front player to micro, I would just give it to that player, because they're already microing these units already. Why why cost yourself APM by also having to micro, right? So I would just hand that over so that you can spend more more of your brain power on your base and just doing things there, so you don't have to worry about it. But yeah, so essentially when you're upgrading these mexes, you want to try to do away with as much of this other stuff being built, because it's all taking up the energy, it's all taking up build power. Or I'm sorry, it's all taking up metal and build power. And you want to try to get this faster so that you get more metal faster, and then that'll allow you to do things sooner. So let's see. You got this guy queuing up some more construction turrets. I would say this isn't really necessary. You already got 4 here. That's pretty good. Pretty strong. Doing more here just, I mean, yeah, sure, it'll be a nice repair, but at the same time, artillery could potentially target it. I mean, I don't know. It's fine to do. It just feels like a lot. And at this time, since you're getting your T2, it's basically going to slow you down. Same with all this other construction. Now it's fine to do energy in a lot of cases, because you're going to need more energy for all that metal that you're now getting. Unless you have a ton of energy surplus, it's kind of good to keep adding it on. Um, and also since you're doing that, I would not push. I would contain as much as you can, or defend as much as you can. I mean, it's going to be nice to get some of these mexes back. Just be careful with it, because you don't want to lose your units. If you lose your units at this time, this is a very good time when, you know, basically if you lose your units now, your opponent can literally just send units up, destroy your whole base, because all the units that are resupplying your army are going to come out slowly because you're doing all these constructions. You know, so I would even pause the lab at this point to get those mexes faster. And just having it faster means that that window of when you're weak is going to shrink. You know, because right now you're trying to slowly produce units and slowly get the mechs and slowly get all this other stuff, and you just don't have the metal for it. And that's, you know, and that's why it's slow, because you're dividing your metal income amongst all these different things. So getting the mechs sooner, you know, essentially means you can benefit from having it. You can start these projects sooner and do it quicker. Blue still has a sizable force here, so that's something to think about, you know, right? But yeah, you also have enough that it's going to be hard for them to attack, especially with Pink's help. So, you know, you can sit tight. You know, and I was saying before, if you feel very comfortable, you could even reclaim the lab to get that extra metal to put into here. FYI, just, you know, reclaim is 100% return on metal if it's a living unit, so quite good to do for things, especially when they cost a lot of metal like labs do. Okay, still upgrading your mexes. Let's see. Okay, you're sending this guy out to grab some mexes, or rebuild the mexes, I should say. But yeah, just kind of a lot going on with, you know, building all the stuff. Too many things going on at once, essentially. Alright, so blue's got a jammer here now. Makes it more difficult to gauge what you need to do. Nice commander eating there for Saturn. It's good news for your team. Now your energy's low. Oh, because you're building a lab. Okay. Yeah, I mean, this makes sense to me because, you know, if you put it all on winds like you have, I mean, you do have a couple of solar here, but most of it's on wind. Any time the wind dips, you're just going to have issues. So yeah, just going back to that, it's like, you know, I want to stress that, you know, a couple of advanced solars, as well as a storage, is good to have for winds like that. Yeah, you need like a ton of wind on this map to actually be competitive, or to actually have enough energy, especially for T2. Because the lab itself is actually pretty cheap on energy. No, it's 16,000. I mean, it's kind of a lot at once, but compared to the units, like a Tsar, 22,000. You know, each Tiger is 10,000. Kind of adds up. Okay, so you're going straight into Tremor. You don't really, I mean, the energy is kind of a thing right now, but I suppose it's enough for now. And now it's going down again, so. Yeah, anytime that, like, your metal's starting to rise because of it, essentially. Alright, anyways, let's look at this fight here. So you're getting ganged up on. So anytime that you see, you know, like, two people coming in like this, and you don't really have the forces, you're gonna need to back up a bit. And, you know, maybe ping an ally to to say like, hey, we got to deal with this. Um, this would be technically Orange's guy, so Orange should be coming over here to respond, and they just haven't noticed, which is a bummer. But that means you need to definitely back up instead of like, because he's flanking, you're basically gonna lose your army here. And in fact, since Blue has Mausers here at the same time, this is actually a big deal. As Blue's just ahead of you at this point. So them attacking you with Mausers plus these medium tanks, this is a huge, huge deal. Yellow doing a nice job here with the D-guns. That totally just like saved you. Big bombing run. Your air player, what are they? That's unfortunate. There's 0 bomb. Oh, they went Aphis. Very fast Aphis. Yeah, this is too greedy from them, by the way. You can't go straight, like as an air player, you can't go straight Aphis. You have to have some fighters. That's extremely greedy. That's not just like a little greedy, that's extremely greedy to not even have fighters out and going for Aphis. The only time that would be even remotely viable, by the way, is if you're periodically scouting and seeing that they do not even have like anything for air. There's gonna be one dead Aphis. Very bad spot for your team then. Because with the air player gone like that, now there's free reign for the enemy air player to continuously bomb. So that's something to watch out for all the other players on the team. Now you got to get anti-air, and not just a little anti-air. You need quite a bit to deal with something like that. Now that was a lot of bombers, so it's going to be a bit like if they get that many bombers this early, it's sort of like their economy is going to hurt a bit. I'd say early, but it is 18 minutes. So actually, let me look at their base. Yeah, I mean, comparatively, nice economy here from Purple at this time for those bombers and stuff. Purple doing a nice job. But compared to like an Aphis, or compared to like a Fusion, like it's a little bit behind in a way. It's like you're trading eco for that bombing run, which obviously the bombing run paid off and it was good. But yeah, what I'm trying to say is, if they bomb at that time, it's basically they can't afford to bomb or to just make that many bombers instantly, right? So it's going to be a bit of time before the bombers are back, unless they're on higher economy. And after, and at this time, if they're having that many bombers this early, then it's sort of like their economy is probably going to be a little bit behind for it. Is my point. While it's good to have anti-air at the fronts, that's not really, it shouldn't really be your main concern at this point. This should be, because this is huge. This is a lot of units here. And the fact that Blue had, you can even see that Blue has the 3.2 upgraded, which means a lot of these might be also upgraded at this point. Yeah, so he has all these mexes upgraded. So Blue's economy is huge compared to yours. 134 compared to your 68. And that might be with reclaim. Oh, no, 68. But yeah, essentially your energy is still faltering, like I was saying before. Blue has a fusion up, and a lot more wind turbines actually. So just to put it in perspective, this is a solid looking base at this time. Blue is a 39, so I mean, Blue has won quite a few games, knows what they're doing. And just a solid play from them. They had, Whistler Janus. They did a lot with that and did a lot of eco behind it with that. Getting a lot of wind turbines, getting a lot of T2 stuff rolling. And now you're in a huge problem mainly because the economy is not on the same level. And in part that's just due to how strong Whistler Janus is. Like they can kind of build a chunk of units and then just not even worry about it. Like the Whistlers, as long as they don't lose their Whistlers, it's like, they can keep, doing bits of damage to you and making you feel like you need more shit, right? You need more stuff to defend these Whistler Janus balls, and that just allows blue to do all this stuff pretty safely. Yeah, essentially, like, because of the range from the Whistlers, you can keep them pretty safe, which allows you to do things like apply pressure while still keeping your Whistlers alive for the most part. Um, yeah, and this force is big enough that you can't really do anything about it. Tremor, that's gonna help, but um, essentially it'd be pretty easy for blue to sneak units in different directions. This gets tricky because you're in a bad spot, but also mountain is starting to fall a bit. So it's sort of like, ideally, you would want to kind of help with this side, and orange would want to kind of like move onto your side a little bit more. Like basically everyone slides down a little bit, right? To kind of help out. To kind of like yellow holds this gap here, orange holds here, and then you holds like more over here, and then the guys back here, they hold what they can, and I, whatever. But yeah, ideally you don't want this to be the enemies for too long, because this just allows the your opponents to basically run through here pretty easily. And if this isn't covered up, then all of a sudden, these players die and the game's over. So it becomes tricky. But yeah, gosh, your energy is just so low. So right here I see you adding on build power. So I think you have the mindset of like, well, I got high metal, build some build power. And that's reasonable. That's what you want to do. The only thing is your energy is also super low. You might see it dip down and go back up. That essentially is showing, I mean, that's basically just because of how it works. Like the energy that you gain is not just like your net energy. The game actually like gives you the energy first and then takes it away. Gives whatever you're producing in energy and then takes it away. So you see it pop up because it's like that's what you're getting per second, and then it's drained after that. So then it goes back down. So what you're actually doing here is stalling. And it goes up periodically, I think, because other people are overflowing, but yeah, you definitely need a fusion. Advanced solar, yeah, again, would have helped a lot having a few of those. Here against so many Mausers, I mean, this is just really tricky because blue also has tick spam coming in for vision. So it's like I would recommend a jammer here. Like a mobile jammer radar combo. These two units. But because of the tick spam, that gets tricky as well. So, I mean, I think it would still help because the trickle is so slight. It's so slow that I think it would help. Negotiators can be pretty good here, actually. It sounds kind of strange because negotiators take a long, like their rocket is very high trajectory and it takes a while for it to land. But Mausers take a while to turn around. And so if you manually fire it at certain positions, it can be quite good. Like at any cluster that you see, like if you fired one here or one back here, essentially like right behind them, then if they try to turn around, they'll basically get hit by it. And if they don't turn around, then they'll still take damage. So their only option is to push forward. And if they push forward, then you have your tigers and stuff to deal with that. But most of the time, people will try to retreat away from that. So I would recommend a few here in this particular case. Quakers, of course, good unit to have too, as the Mauser counterpart. Will be able to help out with that, but it's going to be hard to match the number that he has. So you kind of need to do it. You can't really Like just trying to match him means you're just going to be behind the entire time, so it's kind of hard to do it that way. So trying to find like a different unit to deal with it is quite nice. Um, let's see, Banisher range is not that great, right? It's only 800. Let's see, Mauser range 940, yeah. So can't really use Banisher there. I mean, Banisher is kind of nice because it's somewhat tanky and has a nice arc of firing. And it's very hard to dodge its shot, so that's why I usually like Banisher, but it's kind of tricky. Czar is a good idea too, like just having something to tank damage while you have things like Quakers chase him down. Because the thing is, like these artillery pieces, these the Quakers and the Mausers, they only have a firing solution of 180 degrees in front of them, so they can't shoot backwards essentially. So anytime you can like force them to run and you can like chase them down and destroy them, like it's always a great trade. So getting up in their face with a Tsar and having some artillery behind it is not a bad idea. Oh, you're even able to get pretty close to these tigers actually. Nice. So that was a good call. Oh, there's a Tachyon back here. That's a little rough. I wouldn't have thought that would have been quite enough. I would have thought that there would be something to deal with that, but you actually got pretty close there. Yeah, I feel like in a lot of cases, or at least when I was learning, people would pair Mausers with a couple of bulls, and that would make that kind of attack much harder to do. So I need to get in the mindset of like people just make Mausers these days, they just they don't really have anything to protect them. It's like even doing something like spam, there's like little trickles of spam that are actually taking this out. This is gonna suck. A lot of ticks. Oh, I don't know if that was a tremor shot or some kind of explosion got a bunch of them. Okay, yeah, not too bad actually. I didn't see this here, this pop-up. Very good play from yellow here. A couple of pop-ups for that spam. Dealing with spam is quite tricky when you're Cortex vehicle. I see red is doing air, so that's good. Oh, actually red and pink are doing air. Yeah, spam is great at this point in the game. Alright, so you definitely could use some more build power at this point. Now that you have that fusion, you actually have the energy. I mean, you mostly have the energy. You could actually use another fusion. Is this with converters? No. I mean, you have the basic converters, but not C2 converters. So yeah, actually, you still have quite a lot of drain. Yeah, so this you're starting to build the converters, so that's great. I mean, normally that's great. In this case, it's not great because you actually don't have the energy for it. You are so behind on energy that one fusion actually just catches you up to where you need to be. So you don't really have excess to convert. So on paper, this is like, for every fusion you get like 1 or 2 converters. And usually it's actually more like 1 and sometimes 2 because, it's 1,000 energy and each converter takes 600. So having 2 already is more than 1 fusion. So... Oh yeah, you're Cortex. Oh, this is Armada Builder though. Okay. Because Cortex has... I think they trade slightly better on that. I forget. I don't have a means to check. But anyways, Yeah, you just don't need this right now because you don't really have the excess energy to convert. So just be mindful of that. Yeah, I mean, I think I gave you a lot to work with already. Kind of actually quite a bit to work with. You know, and until like the early stage of the game is cleaned up, this part is gonna not feel as great because you just don't have as much because of the early setup essentially. But yeah, so I'm gonna stop the replay here. But just to go over really quickly, you know, some of the key points that I think would help you out a lot. Essentially, it's all has to do with energy and managing it. So essentially, you know, anytime your energy is low, you know, don't build converters, don't build things that are huge energy costs, like, you know, like you got a couple of these construction turrets early, and that cost, you know, that's gonna delay you a little bit. Like if you had a few more wind turbines before that, and your energy was a little bit, or in a little bit better of a shape, um, you'd be able to build the construction turret a little bit more efficiently and utilize it. So just be mindful of whenever your energy drains, whenever it's low, and if you see it popping up like this, it's still too low. Um, you know, then you want to add on energy, and you know, if your drain is huge, then you want to you know, prioritize it. You want to put like a huge emphasis on fixing it if it's that low, because anytime that you don't fix it, you know, means that you're basically delaying yourself. You're just delaying the units that come out and all that. Um, so that's number one. That's the most important thing. Secondly, you know, trying to get the mexes sooner. You know, it was nice that you got to the front that early. Um, only thing is, if you get there that early and skip all the mexes with your commander, then you're behind on metal. And if you're behind on metal, then your opponent is going to be able to field a lot more units than you. I mean, maybe not a lot more, but like, you know, a significant amount. They have a better build up into having the stuff to defend and or take and defends that middle section with the 3.2 mexes. And that's essentially what blue did, is just had a ball of whistlers, you know, and some Janices just roll up, you know, once they you know, had that established economy early on. Whereas you kind of skipped all those mexes, skipped building some wind turbines, and that set you behind in terms of building units. But yeah, I'm gonna cut it off here. I'm trying to think if there was anything else. Oh, just like in terms of fighting, um, when it comes to Whistlers and Janus, like you want to wait to fight it as much as possible until you have a significant number of units to deal with it. Just running in there with a few medium tanks is just going to get your medium tanks blown up, um, or you know, taking damage. And if you do take a little bit of damage, you know, try to repair it and whoops, try to repair it and fix them up like that. Um, you know, wait for reinforcements if necessary. Um, you know, and again, once you know, if you do get up here before your opponent, you take the mexes. You know, you're a bit ahead in terms of you know, controlling the space, and maybe you're a bit ahead on units, but then they show up with a bunch of units, and now your position is compromised. Instead of trying to fight for that position, if you're behind on units, you want to fall back a bit. You know, try to build up your forces, try to put more into building your forces, and then once you have a collective, and maybe you have an ally that can help you out at that time too, like, you know, maybe talk to your buddies next to you and see, like, you know, hey, is there any chance you could help me push this real quick? Um, because anytime you can push on whistlers and kill them, you know, that reduces the whistler ball, and whistlers depend on being in a ball. Um, and if you were able to do that, that would take pressure off of blue, or I mean, I'm sorry, that'd put pressure on blue to, to make more units instead of uh, producing so much eco. And then later in the game, at this point, it's going to be an easier time because they just have less stuff going on. Because blue here, already has working on third fusion here. So this is ideally where you'd want to be if you're playing a really strong game like blue is. So just be mindful of that. Anyways, that's the three things. Um, Trying to think if there's anything else I'm forgetting. I don't think so. Those are the three main things. Um, but anyways, anyone that's watching, I hope you learned something from this video. Ask any questions that you have in the comments or yada yada. Thanks for watching, guys. See you next time.